Okay, this is a review over the tests we're taking. Kind of follow these problems. These problems, there's 5 problems. I want you to factor unless I say it will not factor. Okay, that's the rule. We need to factor unless I say it will not factor. And I'm going to get a sheet of scratch paper because with these higher powers, I'm going to need to use it. Okay, so x to the 5th, that means there's going to be 5 answers, and we need to set up our factoring boxes unless I say not to, okay? So there's 3 terms, GCF, and my T-chart, okay? My computer's dead. Okay, so GCF, well, do you have a negative? No. You have X on every line, though, so we take this smallest X, the X kind of at the end. And then you can do 2, 12, 10 in your GCF calculator. That calculator you can go to on your computer. You can enter those 3 numbers in, and it's going to say it's 2, okay? So I factor out a 2X. And I circle that, okay? So that's going to be 1x to the 4th minus 6x to the 2nd plus 5. Okay, then I keep going, keep on chugging. Positive 5, sum of 6. Well, that's easy. It's 1 and 5. Okay, so A equals 1, so I just need 2 parentheses. So we're going to take x 4th and break it up, but it's a 4th, so it needs to go x 2nd, x 2nd. We got to pay attention to that. So 1 and 5, and we have minus, so we're going to have minus 5 and minus 1. Okay, but don't stop there. This right here has a minus, okay? X times x and 1 times 1. That's a difference of perfect squares. So that goes down into 2 with a plus minus. So x plus 1, x minus 1. And we can circle the plus, and that's not a difference of perfect squares. Now right here we have a difference, but 5's not a perfect square, so we're going to circle that guy. Okay, now on the scratch paper I take everything I circled, so 2x. Set that equal to 0. X plus 1, set that equal to 0. X minus 1, set that equal to 0. And x to the 2nd power minus 5, set that equal to 0. So 2x equals 0, so I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 0. Minus 1, I get negative 1. Plus 1, I get 1. So there's 2 more answers, but I'm in luck because this is to the 2nd power, so 2 answers are going to come from this. I add 5 to both sides, x to the 2nd power equals 5. And you can just square root 5. Even if it's not a perfect square, just square root it. So I square root 5, and I get 2.23 or 24. Either one's okay. So I get positive 2.23 or negative 2.23. Okay, and those are my answers. Okay, the next problem, I see x to the 3rd. And this time I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Okay, so we need to use our grouping. So parentheses plus parentheses, space parentheses plus space parentheses, space parentheses. So I've got 2x to the 3rd power minus 7x to the 2nd, and then negative 8x plus 28. Okay, we don't have a negative, but we have x on both lines. We take the 2nd power. You can enter 27 into the GCF calculator, but it's just going to say it's 1, so you don't need to put a 1 with it because that doesn't change anything. Here you do have a negative in the lead, okay? You don't have x on both of them. You plug 8 and 28 into the GCF calculator, and it's 4. Okay, and if you don't have access to your GCF calculator, you take the smaller number, list its factors, and see what you can divide them both by, which would be 4. So x seconds out, negative 4's out. So that's going to be 2x minus 7, and that's going to be the same thing, okay? So in each parentheses, we have 2x minus 7, and then we have x to the second minus 4. Now, this right here is a minus, but it's not a dot. So I circle that. It's prime. That's 2 times 2, and that's x times x. So that is a difference of perfect squares. So x, 2, 2. There we go. There we go. Okay, so all my circles, I set those equal to 0. 2x minus 7 equals 0, so I add 7 to both sides. 2x equals 7. That's going to be 3.5. X plus 2 equals 0. I get negative 2. And x minus 2 equals 0. And in that instance, we get positive 2. Okay. 4 more. Okay, let's look at this guy. Now, there are 2 answers. However, when I'm looking at the x's all I have is the x to the second power. So I'm not going to factor. What I'm going to do is box up the x to the second power term and isolate it. So plus 7. So 3x to the second equals negative 24. Divide by 3, x to the second equals negative 8. When you square root, you're going to have a positive and a negative, but you can't take the square root of a negative. You make it positive, bring the I out, because the calculator's not going to pick up the negative. So second, 8, so 2.82 or 83, but we need to put the I with it then. So the answer is 2.83i and negative 2.83i. Okay, next problem. Again, I've got 2 answers. X to the second, okay, is the only x I have, so let's just isolate it. Let's not factor it. So I'm minus 9, minus 9. So negative 4x to the second equals 48. And x to the second equals negative 12. So x equals plus minus. You got to bring the I out of the negative. Then I can find the square root of 12 is 3.46, 3.46i. Okay, so 3.46i and negative 3.46i. Okay, next problem. 6x to the second plus 4x plus 11 equals 0. So there's 2 answers. And I've got x squared. I've also got regular x. Okay, so I got to actually do factoring. So GCF and T, because there's 3 terms. GCF, you would not have one in this instance because you don't have x on every line. And we got positive 66, sum of 4. Well, the problem is that is not possible. Okay. So we need to go to our song. So opposite of B would be ABC. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root, B squared minus 3 parentheses. And B is 4. And then 4 again, because we always put a 4 there. A is 6, C is 11. And then I take 2 times 6. So I've got negative 4 plus or minus, and then 2 times 12, 6 is 12. So I plug that square root in, okay? So second square root, I'm going to try to square root. And I get nowhere. So what I do is I make a square root up here and plug that in without the square root. So parentheses 4 to the second minus 4, 6, 11. Okay, negative 248. That's why we were getting the domain error, because we got to make that positive and bring the I out. So I find the square root of 248, and it's 15.75, but it's 15.75i. So that means I can't add the top, so I leave it as a complex answer. Negative 4 plus 15.75i over 12, and negative 4 minus 15.75i over 12. Okay, next problem. Again, there's two answers. We have x to the second. We also have x. So again, I'd want to factor. So greatest common factor. Now, do I have the negative in front? Actually, I do. Okay. And I can't really find anything else, but I do have to deal with that negative, so I put a 1 with it, and it goes out. And then I divide everything by the negative 1. So it's going to be positive 3x to the second. That's going to turn that to plus 6x, and it's going to turn that to minus 10. Okay, so I'm going to get negative 30, difference of 6. No. 2 and 15, no. 3 and 10, no, that's 7. And then 5 and 6 takes me to 1, so that's not going to work. Okay, so opposite of b, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus these 3. So 6, 4, a is 3, c is negative 10, and then 2 times 3. Okay, so what do I have? I have negative 6 plus or minus 2 times 3 is 6. Now I enter that square root in. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but we got to at least try. Okay, that's 12.49. And since I don't need I can add, whoops, sorry, I got the wrong number, and divide by 6, so that's 1.08. And then I can subtract and divide by 6, and that's going to be negative 3.08. Okay, now in the next one, you are given specific directions not to factor. So there's 3 answers you have to find, and if we can't factor it, we need to use our synthetic L. So 1, negative 5, negative 22, positive 56. Now I only need to find one answer, okay? So I trial and error. So 1 parentheses 1 to the third, minus 5 parentheses 1 to the second, minus 22 parentheses 1 plus 56. Okay, 1 didn't work. Now I try negative 1. Okay, that didn't work either. Now it's time to try 2. 1 times 2 to the third, minus 5 times 2 to the second, minus 22 times 2 plus 56. Okay, that gave me 0. So 2. Okay, so 2, I drop the 1. Add, I get negative 3. Add, I'm at negative 28. And then I multiply negative 56. Okay, now I have a new equation. The 1 now becomes 1x to the second minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. Okay, that's an easy trinomial. There's no GCF with it, but it will T-chart very nicely. So a times c, I take 1 times negative 28, negative 28, 2 factors with a difference of 3. No, 4 and 7, yeah, there you go. Okay, so a equals 1. And it's x to the second, so I can just go x, and then with 4 and 7, minus, so minus 7, and difference is plus 4. So x plus 4 can equal 0, or x minus 7 can equal 0. So I subtract 4, I get negative 4. Add 7, I get positive 7. Okay, the next one, again, you're told not to factor, so don't do it. So with 4 terms that I'm not going to factor on, I set up my L, positive 2, negative 8, negative 8. So now I trial and error. 2 times 1 to the third plus 2 times 1 to the second minus 8 times 1 minus 8. Okay, that did not work. Now I do negative 1. 2 times negative 1 to the third plus 2 times negative 1 to the second minus 8 times negative 1 minus 8. Okay, I got 0 there. So negative 1 is my first answer, so I synthetically divide. Negative 2, that's 0. It's negative 8, positive 8. Okay, so now I have 2x to the second, and then I'm not going to have an x, but I'm going to have a negative 8, and that's equal to 0. Well, now I don't need to factor. I can just box that up, plus 8, plus 8. Because the reason I don't have to factor is because up here I had x squared and x. Here I have just x squared, so nothing stops me from doing like terms. Okay, so x to the second equals 4, and then I find the square root of 4, which is plus or minus 2, positive or negative 2. Okay, and that covers it.